And whenever they do come to the surface, they're often just completely... The website I looked at said the word annihilated by watercraft.
Oh, well,
because
that
they
makes
just
sense.
they're just floating at the surface. There's no way a boat can dodge
avoid them,
and it's not going to move fast enough to get out of the way.
And they have no sense of
Such a blob.
But yeah, they only move fast when they go upward trajectory onto a boat,
Onto a
not
boat.
down to get away from
Also
a boat.
onto children. I think the only time it has killed somebody is when it's like landed on somebody in a boat, because it's like a 2.5 ton creature.
Oh, that's one of the most fucked up things I've ever watched.
I mean,
Welcome to the Nautilus. Yes, we need a dose of inspiration. This Leviathan of meditation set to me.
Ahoy, ahoy! Welcome aboard the Nautilus, where we talk about all things sea life.
And we try not to get too off topic talking about the things that remind us of the sea life we're talking about.
all right, welcome. Thanks for joining us. I'm here with Paul.
And I'm here with Fiona.
And we're here with Nate, another friend who we're bringing onto the podcast. Another lovely, intellectual, curious, very not a professional scientist
Oh,
friend.
stop.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only person we've had to come close to that is my dad.
Yeah.
As a
I hope
geologist.
my dream is to actually one day get a true marine biologist on the show, and I know who I'm going to get. I
Who
forget
is
his
it?
name, but I went snowboarding with him, and he's really nice. And he's the one who taught me
Oh,
all about how dolphins.
Wait, I
you shouldn't
don't
trust
know his
dolphins.
name, but I went snowboarding with him once.
his sister's friend.
I can't remember it right now. It'll
Yeah.
come to me.
She's part of the Big Sky crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's really lovely.
Okay, so Nate, what do you have today?
Great. So I brought. Well, I'm going to preface this by saying I researched this at like 2 a.m. So this is going to be a little bit of a fact salad.
That's how the professionals
Apologia.
do it.
What an
Exactly.
apology.
Yeah. So
Just go at it.
I am doing the ocean sunfish.
The
you-
ugliest fish
Yeah.
in the sea.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen a picture of it.
I've also seen the blobfish. I'm not ready to say the sunfish is the ugliest.
The blobfish is endearing, and it kind of like has its saving grace as having this like magnificent frown, which makes it look like a cartoon. The sunfish is just like an aerodynamically hideous fish.
Yeah. So thanks for bringing us back to the actual fish I'm talking about, the ocean sunfish. So its Latin name, or its scientific name, is Mola mola. Mola is the Latin word for millstone, and it's called that because it looks like a giant gray
Blob.
stone, blobby stone, mucus-covered stone.
Mucus covered.
So it's actually the world's heaviest bony fish.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the heaviest fish because that would be the whale shark, but that's a cartilaginous fish.
Right.
So on average, these fish go between 500 and 2,000 pounds, but the largest ever recorded was about 5,000 pounds.
Fuck.
What?
Yeah, they're huge. I saw one once.
I mean, I know they're huge, but
That's 2.5 tons.
that's so insane.
5,000 pounds of blob. So they're about 6 feet long, 8 feet tall.
I have a lot of questions about this.
Okay,
I'm
well,
gonna let you
Great.
try to answer them.
so they can obviously get a lot bigger. I've seen numbers from like 14 feet tall from fin to fin and that kind of stuff. So obviously what makes them super weird is hideous, thank you, is that they have this stunted, ugly tail.
They don't have a tail. It looks like their body is just chopped off, like
Yeah,
from
exactly.
behind the ear.
Yeah, so it like the tail fin.
I'm just looking one up for reference.
Yeah, totally.
Everybody look one up.
Yeah.
You'll be horrified.
Exactly. Look at this. And you'll notice that its tail is like wrinkled and stunted and ugly. Because it
Fiona
just
gagged.
yeah, it just grows into this shape, and it's called a clavis. which
That's
I-
the tail. Okay.
Yeah, I forgot to look up
I mean,
what
it
clavis
just
means.
looks like a puzzle that was put together super wrong.
To me, it looks like when you ask a 3-year-old to draw a fish. Like, what's a fish look like? Little
Yeah, or
Memphis?
someone who's never seen a fish.
Yeah, and then like some dad with Photoshop creates it into an actual like fish.
Like its fins are switched. The big one's on the butt. Well, I can't even tell.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. So weirdly enough, it is related to, it's part of a group of fish called Tetraodontiforms. I said that like that because I'm reading it kind of syllable for syllable off this page.
Nice.
But tetra means 4,
Yeah.
odont, teeth,
Teeth.
and form means shape. And it's called Tetraodontiform.
Because it's a square.
No. because its teeth, the 4 main teeth in the front of its mouth, have fused together into a beak shape.
Okay.
Oh.
Ah. Like a parrotfish?
Well, yeah, it's in this group of fish. It's related to pufferfish, porcupine fish, triggerfish, all these fish that have this kind of beak-like mouth.
Yeah.
So, weirdly enough, it can't close its mouth because it has these weird teeth in the front. But in
I suggest you get your phone out.
Sunfish.
Mine's about to die. You should
mouth.
It looks like it's
Oh.
supposed to swim
God.
laterally,
yeah.
but it's gone. But someone's tipped it on
Yeah,
its
yeah,
side.
exactly.
What is its tail?
But wait,
Okay.
the creepiest thing.
It's like a piece of cauliflower.
It is. It's like cauliflower ear tail. Like
Okay.
it got punched in the tail and it got stunted.
I have one question that I
Okay.
just can't wait for you to try to answer.
Okay,
Um,
lay it on me.
Why? This just looks like the slowest, meatiest, like mass of food in like the entire ocean. What is to stop every single like orca and shark from just coming up and just like eating part of this blob?
Because it tastes terrible. It's got a fatty layer
Ew.
of like
Its mouth.
buoyant grease under its skin, and so it's completely unpalatable to anything that would eat it.
Wow. There is one picture I found on Google Images scrolling of a seal trying to take a bite out of it.
Yeah, so seals sometimes eat just the top and bottom
Very
fin.
surprised and
Ow.
disappointed.
They just eat the
Yeah, the top and bottom fins are the only thing that's remotely decent to eat on these things, and then they let them die
Oh my.
by drowning, which is pretty messed up.
Ugh,
Well,
I have
it's
I
a
have to
seal.
close my computer.
Yeah. So,
We won't hold them morally accountable.
if
to
their mouth wasn't already messed up enough, they have what's called pharyngeal teeth. So
Doesn't
they're
sound good.
long, thin, claw-like teeth inside their throat that sort of shreds the food that they eat, which is like jellyfish, small crustaceans, zooplankton, maybe small fish. I don't know if I said fish yet.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
I was thinking
So-
about the throat of the sunfish.
Yeah, so it has this like monster vampire throat, like teeth.
Their
Why?
mouth just looks like this permanent hole that can never be closed.
It can't be. That's
It
what he
can't be
said.
closed.
But I know
Yeah.
you said it has teeth, but it just looks like so like nebulously.
Well, it
and
has 4 teeth that are a
unspecifically
beak.
round.
Kind
Right.
of like how the Portuguese man of war had 4 animals that were.
We're not getting into this again.
We've gone as far as we can go on the Portuguese man of war.
I'm just,
It
it's
doesn't make any
it's
sense.
a common theme. These 4 things meld
These
into
4
one.
things melted
Yeah.
into
Semi-
one.
The ocean,
functional.
the ocean works in fours.
Well, a fun thing about, so I said they were related to pufferfish and stuff. If you see their larva, it looks like microscopic pufferfish with like spines and stuff.
Hmm,
And it's
okay.
really weird. It's, you know how people say like in utero, like the human embryo kind of looks like a fish, or we
Right.
talk about our like fish evolution.
Salamander.
Your inner fish.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
same thing. Like
Yeah.
that shows how they relate to their ancestors, because in their larval stage they look exactly like a little miniature pufferfish. And the fun thing about their larva is that by the time they're a larva until they become an adult, they can grow 60 million times their birth size, which makes that the largest like any animal grows
Compared.
Wow.
compared to its birth size.
Oh,
That's
wow.
crazy.
That's a great fact.
That's a great
Yeah.
fact.
That's a superlative. I
They
love
also
it.
they also lay the most eggs of any animal ever. It's like 300 million or something
Ever. Like in the record?
in the entire animal kingdom
Ooh.
In like a single hatch, or like in their lifetime,
in one go.
in one go.
I'm not sure about that. I feel really convicted, but I'm pretty sure it's because they
I was
breed-
ready.
saw you-
I was on board.
Almost try to sell it.
right. But
pulled it off
imagine
the
No,
shelf.
we're all about that here.
you got 2 blobs.
We'll
two-
take it back later if we
We'll
find
leave the
out
audience
otherwise.
to fact check.
Yeah, right. You got 2 greasy mucus-covered blobs trying to mate. There's no
Yeah.
way it's going to be.
What does that look like?
It's not going to be acrobatic. It's not
No.
going to be graceful. It's
No.
just the female goes and the male goes, and then it all goes out into the ocean.
Oh, that's it? There's
Yeah.
no
There's no
contact?
touching?
They'd probably slip off each other if they tried.
Yeah, there's no way they're gonna.
They're like
How can
big,
you
wet carpets.
I'm
Okay.
imagining 2 like planetary bodies slowly orbiting
Yeah.
towards each other, trying to make
Right.
it happen.
Do they, how fast do they swim?
So this is actually fun. Everybody thinks of them as being super slow and awkward, which They often
They
are.
look like they absolutely are.
Except for some reason, they are able to propel themselves fast enough to leap out of the water.
What?
And there have been cases of them leaping out of the water onto a boat with unsuspecting families just out
my
looking
God.
for whales.
That would be the worst whale watching trip. We went on
Yeah.
a whale watching trip and we didn't see anything, which I was moderately disappointed, but we got a free trip for sometime in the next year. But if that trip also encompassed this giant, hideous blobfish,
Let me tell
jumping
you,
up onto the
this
deck.
happened to me. Well, no. Okay, hold on. I said that too fast. I didn't see a whale shark. No. A sunfish. Oh my god. You can tell what I'm thinking about. Jump onto the deck. But I was on a whale watching trip off of Gloucester, Massachusetts.
Gloucester.
Gloucester. And there was a big emotional spike, and everyone went running to the side of the boat, and the captain kind of into the mic, and it was we were sure it was the back of a whale, and then it was too shiny, it was too mucousy, it was too lumpy,
Too scaly.
it was too not moving.
Ugh, it was too
You didn't even notice
unaerodynamic.
the scales. No, it was just very confusing. If you
Right.
were sure it was a whale, then you were sure it was garbage. No.
Oddly enough,
It was a sunfish.
yeah.
And I have to say, in defense of the sunfish, it was more exciting to see that than the whale watch we just went on, where we saw literally nothing. But I wouldn't trade it.
It's funny you talk about the
It's
scales
huge, though. Okay, the scales.
because they actually have denticles on their skin like a shark.
Yeah,
so they're
yeah.
simultaneously slimy and scrapey.
Yep.
Okay.
What is the sliminess?
Yeah, do they produce some mucus?
Literal mucus.
Why?
Why?
I don't know.
To make them
Maybe to make
taste
them streamlined?
Disgusting? This fish is not concerned about being streamlined. I don't know what it's concerned with.
I mean, it is pretty streamline shaped.
Yeah.
It's super flat.
Is it flat?
Well,
Yeah.
I can't
yeah.
see a head-on picture.
Right, it
All
is-
I can see is just a side blob.
It's
Yeah.
completely flat.
It is either some normal shaped fish got clapped.
Paul's just
or-
laughing at pictures of the ocean.
Yeah, that's how I felt at the beginning.
Gosh.
Or it's this is what I was saying. It looks like it should be going along with these
Yeah.
two lateral fins.
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
it just got kind of rotated.
So the range of this thing, it's basically everywhere in the world that's tropical or temperate. And so because it's everywhere in the world, everybody has a stupid name for it. So we call it the sunfish. We call it the sunfish because it's often seen coming up
Just
to the
floating.
surface. Yeah, floating,
Yeah.
laterally, like Fiona was saying. Presumably to warm itself after deep dives, where it hunts for jellyfish and stuff. It also comes to the surface to wait for seagulls and things to pick off the parasites, because it is eaten up with parasites like crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
They know their
Parasites
targets.
love mucus.
Oh yeah. So we call it a sunfish for
Are you
that reason.
burping in the middle of
Mucus. But some other names that I thought were cute.
I just gagged a little bit.
Sorry, I'm laughing at both.
Well, this fish is really ugly.
It is really ugly.
There's gonna be some gag reflexes.
Well, just listen to these names because I cackled. In a lot of other languages, it's called something meaning moonfish, because it's round and silver,
Yeah.
presumably way more mucus covered than the moon, but we get it. But in Germany, it's called the Schvenderkopf, which means the swimming head.
It does look like a swimming head.
In Taiwan, I didn't even write down the Taiwanese word because I knew I wouldn't be able to say it right. It's called the Toppled Car Fish,
This fish looks like a car accident.
because it looks like a
Toppled
it
car.
looks like a
A
toppled
tipped over, crumpled
car.
car.
like a smushed car.
Yeah, and in Polish, I also didn't write it down because no way I was going to say it right. It's called a lonely head.
Why head?
Because
It looks like it doesn't have a body. Like I said, it just looks
Oh,
like
yeah.
it was cut off behind.
Because
the
it has
ear.
no tapering and no
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
so in terms of its relationship to humans, it's all around the world, but it's not that common. And whenever they do come to the surface, they're often just completely. The website I looked at said the word annihilated. by watercraft
Oh, well,
because
that
they
makes
just
sense.
they're
Yeah.
just floating at the surface. There's no way a boat can dodge
Avoid
it,
them.
and it's not going to move
They're
fast
so-
enough to get out
And
of the
they
way.
have no sense of
Such a
like,
blob.
they only move fast when they go upward trajectory onto a boat,
Onto a
not
boat.
down to get away from
Also
a boat.
onto children. I think the only time it has killed somebody is when it's like landed on somebody in a boat because it's like a 2.5 ton creature.
Oh, that's one of the most fucked up things I've ever laughed at.
I mean,
okay.
I want that on my tombstone. Like, what a way to go. So, they're really difficult to keep in captivity because
Because no one likes them.
Because they're hideous.
But
Everyone
no.
just wants to flush them down the toilet.
I wouldn't
No,
gawk at anything
To be
hideous.
fair, no. I mean, like, we all love wolf eels or moray eels in aquariums. They're disgusting. And
Yeah.
horrifying. I think anything that big would be a hit in an aquarium.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, people want to see those things.
People want to see big
I mean, the
stuff.
Elephant Man did great. It's not like beauty that brings people to
Right.
see exhibits.
It sure isn't.
Yeah, so imagine something that grows 60 million times larger than its birth size in 10 years, which is its standard lifespan. This thing is going to grow so fast.
Attractiveness can't keep up with that.
You just
rate.
can't. Yeah, you just can't. You just can't. Like, how do you even take care of? How do you even take care of that in an
You sort
aquarium?
yourself out. Yeah.
And the other thing
Yeah,
is,
right.
also they swim so bad.
yeah.
They
this
can't
was
stop.
what I was wondering.
Yeah,
Wait, they can't stop?
like they can't stop themselves from just completely smashing themselves up against the sides of a tank in
So
an
they
aquarium.
can't turn.
Not with any
Oh.
speed or grace. So it's just like, bum, like,
Okay.
and they beat
They're too
themselves
clumsy.
to death. Yeah, they're too clumsy.
I mean, they're just used to like no predator avoidance because they taste like ass, and they don't run into any walls or
Yeah.
icebergs because they're tropical.
Right.
Slash
So
There's
temperate.
nothing to hit, and they live in like open ocean.
Right.
And it's funny because they developed out of these fish, this group of fish that is mainly like a coral reef dwelling fish, and left the reef to swim in the open ocean. So they've lost all.
Dexterity.
Yeah, totally.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Like, that's just like a category of thought I'd never had.
Yeah.
About this fish can't survive in an aquarium. It's usually something to do with breeding or something to do with
Like depression
water
or something like
conditions
this,
or
Yeah.
or it's or it's mood. But like this is it'll
Fin
just
droops
it
over.
can't handle the contours of a tank.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And it's crazy.
Not the size, just the
Just the fact that there are walls.
fact that they're so bad at maneuvering.
I mean, sometimes I can't handle the fact that there are walls, but it's another story. But it makes sense. Like, think about like why we think of this fish as so awkward and so ugly. It's because you can only go so far from your genetic roots.
Mm-hmm.
It's never meant to be this huge fish. It's never meant to be an open ocean.
So do you think that it's like an evolutionary dead end, and that we're just before the wall, where it's just gonna hit this evolutionary wall?
Ooh, poetic.
Mm.
I don't know.
Think that's it.
Only
Yeah, I mean
Only
it's
time
always
will tell.
this.
Time will tell.
Well, I'm thinking about the book that I know you and I both read, Spying on Whales. Do you remember this?
I remember the book. I don't
Okay,
know
well,
which
yeah,
part you're
right.
talking
Okay,
about.
so in this book, the author talks about why. Well, he mentions the fact that a few of the biggest whales currently on Earth, primarily the blue whale, and then a few whales under that in relative size, so the sperm and the fin, I think, are the next up, are the biggest creatures to ever have lived. And why that is and what it is about their maximum size that relegates them to that maximum size. So why there's never been a whale that is over 109 feet in length. And it has to do with, well, I'm getting a little bit off topic. That has to do with the physics of it would not actually be able to function the way that it needs to if
Yeah.
it was like 1 foot longer. But the concept that he's talking about is like what allows or what encourages an animal to what's the word, to progress, to evolve.
yeah.
To a state that takes it to its a capacity that seems like, why would it get that big? Like,
Yeah.
what led to this sort of extreme growth rate, or what led it to get to such a big size? And there wasn't, if I'm remembering correctly, much better of an answer than just like, that'll happen eventually. Like,
Well, to be
genes
big,
will continue to experiment. To be big is usually to be an advantage.
Yeah.
And it will
because
and there will get there,
just
and there will
puts
be
you out of a
drawbacks
class
to
of
that.
predators.
Yeah.
For sure.
Just by sheer size.
And
But,
so,
Because I wonder like what this fish is like good at.
Well,
Like this fish, I mean, is it just
It's
it's
like not
is it
being eaten.
the mucus? Is it the size? Is it its ugliness that
I
just
mean-
like turns away the mako shark?
well, for a terrible swimmer, it actually migrates significant distances, not huge distances, but it can migrate.
Just not around any walls.
Nope, just not around walls. It's definitely like a long journey. This is not a sprinting fish. Like, and it dives a lot, so it dives to hunt. And I think some of that size and blubberiness helps it, survive in the colder waters.
yeah,
than
and
other fish.
probably with some
Yeah.
sort of compression.
This fish
Yeah.
looks like it has remarkably low surface area based on its mass, because it's just like such like a blob versus like this long, delicate fish.
Yeah, I mean it is pretty flat, but it is definitely blobby.
Yeah, it's a lumpy.
This might make you feel better about it. They're apparently very friendly and curious.
Oh.
Okay, well,
The
it goes
theory,
a long way.
yeah, the theory is that it's because they rely so much on other animals to remove parasites from them that they're just very.
It'll just leap onto a boat.
They're just
In case
very,
that a child will
If it
just
gets
pull off
desperate
worms.
enough.
just pick off the worms. I think I saw somewhere that it was like there could be up to 40 different species of parasites on one individual fish at any given
Oh
time.
shit.
So they need help.
Wow.
That's my animal that I'm about to do. Had about 8 or 9 different possible parasites listed per animal.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a lot.
40. They can blink, which is apparently very unusual for
Can they
bony
wink?
fish.
If one of their eyes is gone, yes.
I bet you. I'm gonna say yes.
If they're really,
Just going on a
if they're
feeling.
really sassy.
If they're really friendly, like an extra friendly one, it's like, hey, you want to pick this worm off my back?
Yeah, right,
I'll
right.
let you
If they're
eat it
really
if you
trying to
want.
like entice you in. If they land on your boat and then they're like, JK.
And there's also this Cornish legend of Saint Piran,
Ooh.
who was tied to a millstone and thrown off a cliff. But
He lands on a sunfish.
the millstone didn't sink; it floated and pulled him to shore. And mola, which is the scientific name of this fish, means millstone. So there's like this. Are they connected? Who knows? Like, was it?
Oh, so it didn't get named that because of the legend?
No.
Like they're not.
Yeah, these
oh.
are two separately,
Wow.
apparently, like coincidental facts. But it's like, oh, and there have been sunfish sighted on the coast of Cornwall in England. That's kind of like almost the northernmost
Yeah.
range of them.
Yeah.
But because of the Gulf Stream, it's warm enough
Right.
on the southern coast of southwest England to have ocean sunfish.
Yeah.
I'm thinking now about the legend of Saint Brendan, who is the Irish saint of a few things, but travelers is one of them, and he set off on this voyage, and one part of his long saint epic is that he and his men ended up, they thought they were on an island, and then they thought they were on a floating island, and they eventually figured out that they were floating on the back of a big fish, and then one day it went to take a dip and they had to hang on with a rope and all this stuff, but actually a sunfish would be a good candidate
Yeah.
for
Wow.
that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it.
Amazing.
So that's it. That's the ocean sunfish.
Wow.
Cool.
That is
Well-
weird.
It's gross. It's hideous, but I hate it a little bit less after knowing
That it's
that
friendly.
It's so
that it
friendly.
winks.
Yeah.
That
that
Or it
winks.
would
That it-
if it only had one eye.
That it might be able to wink. That's enough.
I like
It's
the
enough
fact
for
that
me.
it winks.
Ah. And are they're like solitary animals? There's not like a school of sunfish.
Right, they're solitary as adults.
friendless.
They do school when they're larva and fry, but they part ways.
branch out.
Yep.
Wow. Wow. Thank you.
I love
Thank
it.
you. Thanks for letting me
Ocean
share.
sunfish.
As the ancient
Pause.
proverb goes.
And we're back. Okay, so my creature for this week is the great albatross.
Ooh. Is
Yeah.
there a lesser albatross?
There are several different species of albatross within like the family of albatross. There's 22 species of albatross.
Whoa.
Oh, that's not several. That's a sizable chunk.
Well, there's a lot.
No. I mean, I'm saying that's like more than you give it credit for. I remember there were 22 species of beaked whale too.
Right.
Whoa.
That's a lot.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
totally. Dive right in.
Yeah, just name a fact.
So the range of it is it's primarily in the Southern Ocean, and it's in the North Pacific, but it's absent from the North Atlantic. And there are fossils of it in the North Atlantic, but it went extinct in the Atlantic, and no one really knows why. And every now and then there's just like this errant like albatross that drifts into the North Atlantic, and it just goes to like some island in like the Shetland chain off Scotland and try it and looks for someone to breed with and just can't find anybody. It's just a bunch of
Lands
Scottish
on a
gamuts.
sunfish.
I can relate.
Yeah.
So wait, do they live kind of like all over, or is it tropical? Is it cold?
It's cold.
Cold.
Okay.
So primarily cold. They are really known to just kind of they don't migrate, but just kind of their range is kind of like circumnavigates the South Pole.
Wow.
So just kind of flying big circles around the South Pole, which, if nothing else, is proof against the flat Earth theory, because everybody thinks that like the flat Earth theory is like the South Pole is like
Boom.
this. Anyway.
Remember the albatross.
Remember the albatross.
Why would one end up in the Shetland Islands so far close to the Arctic Circle?
Well, they fly fucking forever.
But you said they don't migrate.
They don't migrate, but they don't have like specific migratory patterns. Like they don't fly here to feed and then fly here to roost. They just fly forever to look for food, pretty much.
Like, oops, I accidentally flew over 3/4 of the world.
Seriously, no. There's crazy statistics. Okay, so there are...
Oh, pause here. We're just going to explain that noise. We're in an old New York apartment. That is a steam heat radiator.
With a very unruly and uncompromising heater.
In that we can't control it. It's going to hiss.
Control it.
Okay, we're going to let that go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get through as much as we can. It is among the largest of all flying birds, and it has the longest extant wingspan in the world. So its wingspan at full breadth is over 12 feet.
Whoa.
What?
Which is pretty insane. Yeah. I mean, this is the largest species of albatross, obviously.
The great.
The great albatross.
Aptly named. Okay, I just want everybody to think about, like, put your own hands out, and if you're 5.5 feet like me, just take that in, double it.
6
Think
feet
about
like
how
me.
deep that feels when you're looking off of the edge of a diving board into the 12 foot of your local public pool.
So like this is one wing. Like, both of our arms out are one of its wings.
So crazy.
One of its wings. It's really crazy.
What?
It is the most efficient traveler of all vertebrates in the world. It expends...
So going to Scotland is NBD.
Yeah, NBD.
Really oops.
And it spans like pretty much next to zero energy, flying like hundreds of miles. It can fly up to like 1,000 kilometers a day using like really next to no energy.
Once again, bigger equals
Bigger
evolution's
equals
goal.
further, for sure.
Bigger equals, I mean, this is what we were talking about. In a lot of cases, this is just where you want to get.
Yeah.
So if you're light enough and big enough, you can just coast the fuck out of flying. Or...
I mean, there are drawbacks. So their wings are totally designed to just like cruise, and it needs like air currents to cruise on.
Yeah.
So if they get stuck in the doldrums, if there's no current, there's no breeze, they'll just like sit there and just like wait for a breeze to pick up. Because to
tapping their toe.
Because to flap, they're like really inefficient. Like,
Flight's been
flappers.
delayed 4 hours again.
They're really inefficient flappers that just they coast, and they have all these techniques of riding the air currents, and they'll kind of fly up against the wind, and then kind of descend down through the air current, and this is called dynamic soaring. And they actually gain energy by doing this. So this is where they get their energy from in their flight. So they never have to flap. And they have these special tendons, which like like lock their wings into like an outstretched formation, so there's like no muscular effort
Okay.
to hold their wings out.
I have kind of a stupid question.
Yeah.
So they have to land somewhere to sleep, right?
Well, there's like a myth, hypothesis, urban legend, whatever it is,
A
that they
myth-pothesis.
sleep while they're flying.
Well,
and
yeah.
this is what everybody has postulated or whatever, but it's never been observed.
Well, if they can lock
they-
their wings, like
exactly.
Oh, okay. Wait, I have a follow-up question.
Mhm.
So my animal, the puffin, is in this category of. I mean, okay, is this a pelagic seabird? And that term referred to what is really a seabird, not just that it hunts, but that it really can quite literally live in and on the ocean. So can an albatross sleep on the waves? Does it float?
I didn't see that it could sleep on the waves, but I'm assuming it can. It'll just land in the waves and kind of sit there if the air is still. Or whatever.
Okay, so it could either mythologically lock itself into arrow sleep.
Yeah, just
Or
like
it might
point it in like
float.
a direction.
Yeah.
The Shetland Islands.
that's why that one ended up in the
Bad
Shetland Islands.
programming.
He fell asleep and was like, "Damn it, Shetland Islands again." I'm definitely
took
not getting laid
Some
tonight.
melatonin, and he got too good of a night's
2
sleep.
Ambien, some red wine, and he is out. The whole flight.
Yeah, and so when it is still air, they need to take this like magnificent sprint of a running start to take off because they need so much like lift and like air current to take off. So they're one of the few like
Runway.
seabirds
Yeah.
that can like really have functional legs and can actually run.
So
pretty well.
presumably they're not cliff dwellers.
They're not cliff dwellers.
Is it-
They're not cliff dwellers. I'm gonna
Okay, because
I'm gonna edit that out. But it reminds me of the Rescuers Down Under, and this is like my earliest vision of an albatross.
Of course. How did none of us make that
God,
connection
that movie's
yet?
terrible. Have you gone back and watched it? Do
I
it.
no,
I'm about to
I haven't
tonight.
watched it in 22 years, and I
Don't
think it's amazing.
do it. Don't
It's
rewatch
bad?
it.
Oh.
Oh, he's nodding
Why?
emphatically.
I don't know why the child is inexplicably American if he's growing up in the outback of Australia.
What about the first Rescuers? That's not the Down Under
Is
one.
that the only reason you don't like it? It just doesn't make sense.
You
much.
are one to talk.
Well, I remember the albatross landing and then needing to extend the runway, and you needed a giant run
Right.
head start.
Yes.
So someone did their research.
Someone did their
At least on
Research.
albatross.
Yeah, at least on
Not
that
on
part.
Australia.
Maybe not on accents. Or
maybe not on how mice attach like a basket onto the top of an albatross.
Listen,
Do
I didn't come here
transatlantic
to be
flights.
attacked.
You were the one who said the movie was bad.
Yeah, I brought up some cherished childhood memory, and you told me I was
You were like,
wrong.
oh, it's shit.
And I've never been happier.
We should watch part of one of those.
Yeah, we totally should. Okay, anyway. Some other fun facts. It evolved from the Oligocene 35 to 40 million years ago.
Tom,
That's the end of that one.
no one knows what that means.
This was something that's kind of cool. Well, it gives you a good reference for like the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. They started to turn into albatrosses.
Oh, actually, yeah. Say the year range again.
35 to 40 million years ago.
Oh.
Okay, all right, that's us.
Yeah.
I was talking over that part. That's
Yeah,
why I didn't.
I noticed. Another cool fact is salt water. They've taken so much salt water from drinking seawater and eating all their seafood that their body has to like process and like spit out the salt water. And there's this gland that collects all the salt and excretes it out of these nasal passages. So they just like blow snot rockets of like concentrated salt snot out of their noses.
And what animal survives on that?
Probably the sunfish. It just coats itself.
I
in
know
it.
this fucking circle of life has something that's like, wait, if the albatrosses die,
Wait,
that floating
That's
sea
amazing,
slug
though.
won't get its snot, and then that's
because like so many animals, like, and to me it's amazing how ocean animals can live in such a
And not
salt-rich
get
environment.
so like withered and like salty.
I mean,
and,
if
like,
we
shriveled.
get stuck on the ocean and can only drink salt water, we'll die in like 24 hours.
I would
Like,
need a lot of lotion to keep up.
yeah, I
I don't
mean,
think I could.
that,
But it turns out that most animals,
That's
most,
where everyone's mind went.
the lotion.
I need CeraVe.
most sea animals, if not all, I don't know which is true, have this like really developed salt gland that collects salt and
Excretes it.
kicks it out of their body.
Also, mangrove trees.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh,
'Cause
note
I've always
to
wondered
self.
that. I've always wondered
Mangrove
that.
tree.
Why like a
gonna-
human, for example, will like instantly die if it has like a glass of salt
Yeah.
water, but then like like an orca can just live in the salt water its whole life.
Yeah, they
Right.
never have access to fresh water.
Yeah,
Just a gland.
the gland,
It's that gland.
the gland. Great. Let me look. Okay. Some fun facts about breeding. They live in like colonies. They always go back to the same place to breed. They breed in pairs. They're one of these pair birds.
I think, yeah. All of
They're-
these seabirds seem to be like
Yeah.
maintaining returning pairs.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy. 'cause
Spend
they have,
half
like,
the year
the
together
biggest range
and-
out of anything, and
Yeah.
they always come back to the same little shitty island covered in bird shit, and find the same bird.
And I can't
Hey.
remember this place I went to in the village last week for coffee. Like, I've been
Yeah.
been looking for it ever since.
Maybe
Yeah.
you need to move to a shittier island. And
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they live for an incredibly long time, 50 plus years. There's a really
Actually, that's more than I expected for being that big.
It's crazy.
right. I know.
Yeah.
Wisdom is a magnificent albatross named Wisdom. That is a name given by a human, but it's the oldest confirmed and observed bird in the world.
Like an individual you're talking about.
An individual
Okay.
bird named
Whoa.
Wisdom.
How old is it?
It was tagged in 1956, and the estimated age at that time was 5. And in 2019, it laid and hatched an egg with its partner. I'm gonna really butcher this Hawaiian name, Akiakame.
So bad sounding? Not that I speak Hawaiian.
Might be way off. Akiakame hatched an egg with Wisdom in 2019.
Hatched an egg. So not only is it still alive, it is reproductively active.
Is reproductively active.
And how old is that?
That is
Math.
well,
Math.
it's in January 2020, which is like the last update I could find online. It was still alive, and now I would put it at 69 years.
And that's the oldest recorded what?
That's the oldest recorded like bird in the wild.
So
or
not-
bird in captivity too.
Even with the gray parrot, which is famously long-lived?
I think so. Again, we have to cross-check these facts.
Yeah,
Or-
maybe it's like seabird. Or maybe not.
Maybe
It
bird in the
said bird.
wild.
All
It said
maybe
bird.
bird in the wild. I mean,
It
all
said
I
bird-
know
it
is
said,
this
did say
like,
bird in the wild, and it said banded bird, which I think is just like a wild bird that's been observed by.
Oh, banded
like
bird,
that.
yeah. Yeah, because there's some like really sad like 85-year-old macaws that have like plucked all their feathers out because their
Really?
owners have died. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
And they're on like their 4th, like you inherited this parrot you didn't ask for.
An old grandparent,
Yeah.
great grandparent you have to take care of.
Actually, Paul and I were at dinner last week, and 2 different family history stories came up on 2 unrelated families of people who'd inherited parrots.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Cool.
Yeah. And oddly enough, in both stories, those parrots had originated from someone who was involved in like
Racist against Germans.
a seagoing profession, and they cursed a lot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and one was also racist against Germans.
That was Winston Churchill's bird. Someone
Oh.
inherited Winston Churchill's parrot, which he always said, fuck the Germans.
Right.
I mean,
So yours was actually a
African grey.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
no, I meant it wasn't in your family. It was a friend of the family.
Yeah, it was a friend of the family.
Mine was in the family. It was just a sailor. Just a sailor.
And the bird cussed like a sailor.
Just like a sailor.
Track.
Just some other fun facts. Just continuing on with the breeding and life cycle. So they reach sexual maturity at 5 years. but they don't really get any game to reproduce until about another 5 years to like 10. And it's because they need like to practice their social graces. So these birds have like these really elaborate like this like syntax and like albatross language of communication between other birds to like find a mate. And these birds like have all like the vocabulary and like all like the hardware, but they don't like pick up on social cues and don't know how to respond. And it just takes them like a trial, like a period of like denial and error for like years and years where they just like really fall in the face socially.
This sounds incredibly human.
Yeah,
until
absolutely.
they finally get laid, which is
But then they're set for life, right?
What's that?
But then they're set for life,
But
right?
then they're set for life.
So, okay, so different than humans, they don't try out laying other albatrosses and then land on one they keep laying.
Well,
They just don't get laid until they're better.
they
at
don't
it
get
all.
laid until they're 5, and then apparently they're stuck to it. And albatross divorce is very rare, and it's only when they can like produce a fledgling from an egg for like multiple years in a row.
Wow.
They only produce 1 egg a year. It's over a pound. And
Ooh.
they
Big
lay
eggs.
That's cool.
They lay this egg, and it takes them a year from when they lay the egg to when, like the fledgling is ready to go off.
Okay. Does one or both of them have to be sitting on this egg the whole time?
I didn't find that. There was definitely a shared responsibility, but I don't know if it's like a penguin thing, where the male just like
But I
sits
mean,
there staring at his shoes.
most nest situations
entire
are like
winter.
it needs to be kept warm. Like someone needs to be sitting on it.
Right.
So one or the other is flying off to Scotland accidentally and ranging for that long, and the other one is sitting for a whole year at a time on
Wait,
an egg.
no,
Hawaii.
it's a year until it leaves the nest, right? Not a year until it hatches.
It said a year from laying the egg to fledgling. I don't know.
Fledgling,
Fledgling, does this... I don't know this term. Does that mean the bird leaves the nest?
Yes.
Okay.
Fledging is when they
fledge.
yes, when they
Yeah.
fly. But that someone still needs to be there all the time bringing food to something
Right,
that is nest
yeah.
bound. So
Yeah.
like I'm wondering when they do all of their accidental or intentional long range flying, because once you're tied to a nest for year after year.
Well,
I mean,
they don't reproduce every year, so they'll have like a gap year usually because
Okay.
it's very
gap
it's
years.
very taxing.
We should all observe these.
It's very taxing to make an egg, and then they have to like sit there forever.
Right.
Get really bored, and so they'll like have an egg,
Scrolling
but then
and
they'll take like a
scrolling.
year off before they make another
I love how
one.
we're like, it's so taxing to raise something for a whole year. It's like humans.
And also, this is not a short-lived animal.
Yeah, it's
They're
like, I'm pretty sure my
they're
parents.
70 and they're still giving
Yeah, my
birth.
parents still pay my telephone bill at this point, so I'm not really gonna. I'm not gonna go there.
Oh yeah. Okay. The albatross has time to spare.
So some of the threats, we always have to have like a threats category, because this is the world we live in. There are 22 species of albatrosses in the world, and all are listed in some level of concern. Whether it's like we need to watch this bird, to like the critically endangered, whatever. In the past, the species were killed and harvested for their feathers. That's kind of past. But one of the big threats today is that their nesting grounds are in danger from invasive animals, namely rats and cats, who
Ugh.
have been introduced
Are you
to these
serious?
islands and just go,
Yep.
fuck up the nesting grounds of all these albatrosses,
A cat?
because cats are dicks.
Well, yeah, but I mean they're kind of a lot smaller than an albatross,
But they're not that much smaller than a.
than
Than a
Baby
fledgling.
an egg.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And rats will eat the eggs, right?
Rats will eat the eggs.
Yeah.
And I think rats will like, they'll eat live stuff too.
They'll hitch a ride.
Yeah.
What?
They'll weigh you down.
But of course, that means that we're ultimately responsible for that because
Yeah.
we brought those
Yeah,
animals to those places.
or-
Of course, yeah. Because they're totally like an island bird. They never come to like a continent, so they just like hang out on these little spits of knolls out in the middle of the ocean.
That's an interesting. So, why accidentally an albatross colony wouldn't find a coastline isolated and perfect and beautiful that was just by circumstance connected to an entire continent. Like they are only islands.
Well, they have something in it where they don't like inhabit any ocean that's less than 1,000. It has to be feet, either meters or feet deep. So they never go into like a shallow sea. So somehow they can tell how deep an ocean is, and they stay in this zone where like the water is at least 1,000 feet.
That's
deep.
crazy.
So that they're only inhabiting small islands that they're
Like small volcanic islands.
right.
that
Like I'm
just
thinking
in the
they're like drop off where they. Wow, that's a crazy
That's
fucking
cool.
fact.
Yeah.
They're like sonar depth measuring.
I mean, no
Or
one
diving,
I
whatever.
don't think
No.
anyone
Do they dive?
understands how they do dive up to just like 12 meters to just catch fish or whatever.
Huh.
So they somehow know that. I mean, it must be something about what grows on those islands
Yeah.
that they're attracted to, and it's
Or maybe it's just, I mean, I'm sure it has to do with like ocean currents and like wind currents and stuff like this.
Oh,
that
yeah,
gets
yeah, yeah.
disrupted
Okay,
by
okay.
a landmass.
well, credit what credit's due.
Yeah. Credits too.
Pollution also just ubiquitously sucks for every animal. That's not
Birds
good
are
for
always
them.
swallowing plastic they
Um,
shouldn't.
Yeah.
Those idiots.
Decline in fish stocks, and they're being caught in long line fishing, which I covered extensively in the bluefin tuna episode.
Oh, yeah.
But they're just attracted to like the bait because they eat crustaceans. They love squid. Every animal loves squid.
Every animal, as far as I can tell, either eats crustaceans, mollusks, or squid,
Yeah. They really like
including us.
I like squid. Yeah.
picking off regurgitated squid from whales.
Oh, nice.
It's like a sperm whale will come up and just like blurp up a bunch of
It ate
extra squid he ate,
too much squid.
and then the albatross will eat it. I think that's fun.
Hold on. Wait, did we talk about you? Did you talk about their eating? So they shallow dive only, but they do dive.
They shallow dive.
That's how
only.
they hunt.
Yeah. They shallow dive and they get stuff up. They're one of the
scavenge.
few birds that have a
throw up
really
squid.
developed sense of smell.
Oh,
So they're kind of like vultures. Well, they'll find just like some carrion
okay, yeah.
on the ocean and eat this. But they eat fish, crustaceans, offal, which is organ meat.
Wait.
Awful.
Awful.
Offal.
You said offal.
Me too. I was
Awful.
like, huh.
And the waved albatross is the only albatross that practices kleptoparasitism. When it
Is that what it sounds like?
harasses blue-footed boobies to steal their food. So they'll like
Oh,
watch
I
for
see.
another bird to get food, and they'll just go steal
So
it.
it's not stealing their parasites. It's stealing their food.
Stealing,
It's being a parasite.
Yeah.
stealing their dead parasite, which is what that sounds like.
Well, you need your feathers cleaned.
Right.
Sure. Okay, finally, just a bit of culture, which is cool. It is quoted as being the most legendary of all birds. And this is in the Handbook of Birds of the World by C. Carbonaris.
I read it every night.
Yeah, of course.
It's a good one. Yep. Page Turner. The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, which is
Oh,
this poem
Yeah.
Of course.
by Samuel Taylor Coleridge.
Yeah, I mean,
Samuel Taylor Coleridge.
now here I am not remembering the poet, but that's a really famous poem.
Yeah.
I know, yeah.
The albatross
Wait, it's not the other
represents like the innocence and the perfection and the beauty of God's creation. And in like sailor mythology, it was considered like extremely bad luck to kill or injure an albatross.
Yeah.
It was
This
like
is what I wanted
It was
to
like
know.
an auspice of like disaster. So if there's a phrase that someone carries an albatross around his neck, this is like the shame of a sailor who like killed an albatross.
Right, and that's
it's
a
like
common enough phrase. Sort
It's
of.
like
Yeah.
this baggage
It's a little
and like
bit, yeah.
guilt and like some past trauma.
That's very public. That
Yeah.
everybody.
Right,
Yeah.
albatross.
Yeah, and albatrosses were believed to be like the souls of like lost sailors,
Oh,
so you shouldn't kill them.
Oh, that's pretty.
what were you gonna ask about?
That specifically, the
Oh, okay,
albatross
okay.
around your neck. I was
Yeah.
like, I've heard that before. It's
Yeah.
like this thing, this like very public sin that you've committed that you're never gonna really be able to walk away from. Everybody's just gonna know
Yeah.
Right.
for the rest of your life. And that makes sense.
Yeah.
Why are they considered the perfection of God? I mean, is it just they're very beautiful?
I think they're very beautiful and probably just like their sheer size, and they're just I'm sure they just look really beautiful, just like coasting on airplanes across the ocean.
You guys ever seen one?
And I think they're pretty rare. They
really
have
either.
like a common seagull or anything. So when you do see one, they're just like huge.
Right,
And
because
they're
like
really magnificent.
I mean,
and-
12 feet.
yeah, anything
Yeah.
2 of you long,
Yeah, I mean that's
it's
insane.
crazy.
Yeah.
I've heard the claim a lot that the condor, the Andean condor, is definitely the biggest bird, and I'm wondering how big that is. If an
Well, this said it
albatross
had
is
the
12 foot,
longest wingspan. It didn't say it was said it was among the biggest birds. I'm assuming that's like
maybe the
weight or
condor has
something.
more bulk or something.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Albatross.
awesome.
Should look that up. Cool.
Cool. Okay. I did the Epaulet Shark. No reaction.
Sorry, I'm looking up.
We got like a cork pop, as Nate was like, more line. I don't
I
know
was
what that
looking
is.
up a condor wingspan.
Yeah, talk about your shark. It's okay, sweetie. Let me have a
Okay,
wine.
real quick before we get started.
Oh, okay.
A condor wing. Wait, sorry, 1 second. So let me just read this. The Andean condor. Californian Andean condors are, respectively, the largest flying birds in North and South America. In terms of body length,
Oh, and just North and South America.
the California condor is 4.5 feet. Blah blah blah. The Andean condor wins when it comes to weight. The wingspan is 10.5 feet. So the albatross is
Has a
bigger,
bigger wingspan.
12 feet.
Yeah.
Wow.
When I would consider bird, like, if I was talking about biggest to smallest, in my uninformed mind, wingspan would be the sort of trump card, just because, you know, birds and weight, or like girth or mass or volume, it's not really something we think about as much.
Right.
I mean, in that case, it would just be an ostrich. You
Right.
know, like
Yeah,
if it's
yeah.
as far as a flying bird goes,
Well, this
the
is also flying
wingspan,
birds,
right,
yeah.
is kind of obviously the thing we would see and connect to. So
Yeah.
kind of the albatross.
It's
seems
like the bird when it's most the bird.
Right.
Like a bird when it's just like walking on the ground is kind of like us
Not living up to
swimming.
its potential.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. It's like us doing a handstand. We can do it. It's cool, but
And we're taller than, but
it's not very impressive.
yeah, anyone can do a
Anyone
handstand.
can do it.
Or like a human swimming. That like an Olympic
Yeah,
swimmer
true. It's still terrible
can
compared.
swim like at this certain rate of speed in the ocean, but they're like they're pathetic compared to like a I don't know
Like a minnow. Like
like
they're
a minnow.
Anything
Compared to
really
anything that's
that
built
was
sardine,
designed
you
to
know,
live
like-
there,
Yeah.
except the sunfish.
Oh.
Oh,
mhm.
oh.
Oh, well, you can jump
It
onto
can
a
leap
boat.
onto boats.
And it can live in the ocean, which we can't.
It's
So,
true.
It's got that.
Got that.
And they're
Guys,
nice. They're really nice. They're friendly.
It can
They're very
excrete mucus all over its body. I can't do that.
Yeah, we gotta stop about the mucus first.
Okay.
Okay.
Back to the Appellate
The
Shark.
Epaulet Shark. This is a wee shark living in the Indo-Chinese Oceans on the Australian coasts. Its nickname is the walking shark. Yeah,
Let me guess.
it's that thing.
I have a question.
Okay. Are you gonna ask if it walks?
Does it go up on like very shallow sea, or like does it go up on land?
Yeah.
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 I saw this. I saw this on TV.
Yeah.
So cool.
It is. It's like the most popular sort of like you've never heard of this freaky little thing special on TV that you've never heard of. Like
Yeah.
I think a lot of people may have seen this and forgotten about it. It's not an insanely. Well, okay, that's very unfair of me to say. I was gonna say like if for some reason it isn't so memorable, except that like almost everyone I bring it up with, they're like, oh yeah, I think I
Oh,
saw
yeah, that
like
one.
a little like a minute and a half long thing about that, and it's not like the craziest animal otherwise, but it's fucking crazy that it walks, and it not only walks on land and around little tidal pools. It walks all the time, so it's not fond of swimming, even when it is even when it is in actually like water of depth that it could swim in, it just kind of like walks along the bottom.
No way.
It uses its little fins, and it's always contacting Terra.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Okay, so I'm gonna back up a little bit now that I've introduced, because that name means nothing, right? Like what? Because the nickname is the walking shark, but the epaulet shark. I'll talk about what that is. The epaulet. Okay, so if you look up a picture of this shark, I have one drawn here, so I'll show it to you guys. That is what the epaulet is. So if you look at the shark, it's a cute little leopardy looking thing. It's sort of sandy colored, which is intentional. Obviously it wants to blend in with its surroundings, which is often sand, and like it's the extremely like maybe inches deep shallow water it spends a lot of time in. But behind its gills and slightly above its first pectoral fin is a very large black spot. And that's why it's named an epaulet. And an epaulet is, let me turn my book back around. It's like when you think about a soldier's uniform, I almost said costume. not really like a modern soldier, but and sort of 19th or 18th century European soldier, or maybe even the outfits that members of the British Guard, like the tall hat dudes, wear. They've got those shoulder pads that are like a black circle with a fringe that hangs over the edge. Yeah.
Oh,
and that's called an epaulet.
Like the Disney prince with the gold little fringe.
Right,
on
and it's like
shoulders.
a kind of thing.
Just makes you look like you have good shoulders.
Yeah, it squares you off.
Squares you off. Puts you in a line.
Puts you in line. So, someone who named it, I mean, I would argue that a big black spot could be interpreted as a lot of different references.
Looks like
Somebody thought, but I mean, but it does look like if a shark was like forced into, like if you took a shark's body and then stuck a human skeleton inside of it, like this spot would land on where the shoulder is.
If a shark had a shoulder,
If a shark had a shoulder and was of significant rank.
That
if
sounded
you give
like
a mouse a cookie,
yeah.
if a shark had a shoulder.
It sounded like it was about to be one of those tongue twisters. If a shark had a shoulder.
It should have been a shiny shoal.
So, the epaulet, he's a soldier. No, they're not. They're like most sharks. They're in no way soldiery in that they work in groups. They're definitely solitary. Okay. They're at biggest 3 feet in length, and at smallest, I don't know. That is apparently like a whoa. That's a big one.
A big one?
Yeah,
okay.
They're not really that big. I mean, from what I could tell from the David Attenborough specials that I watched,
That's where
the one where he was wading around in Crocs, which is a
that's
shoe
the
I
one
love
was
and Paul
thinking of.
doesn't like.
I was thinking, I was like, that's the one from the crocodile.
Right. So I have a pair of Crocs. Paul doesn't like them. I'm always like, you know what? They're good enough for David Attenborough.
Oh wait, I'm thinking of something else.
Oh, I'm thinking of the shoe. Like the rubber shoe with holes in it.
Some animal. I don't think it was crocodiles. It was escaping some animal, jumping around in Planet Earth 2. Like.
Planet Earth 2. I gotta go back and watch that. The newest one that's out is David Attenborough's like swan song.
Yeah.
His whole thing is like,
I'm 93.
and I've seen some
I'm
shit.
Pissed.
I have an amazing life. I need to tell you about
life.
how we're fucking up this planet.
Yeah.
It just came out pretty recently, I think.
Oof.
Yeah. It's on our to watch list. Good. I don't remember what it's called, but it's in the whole category of
You search for David Attenborough on Netflix.
Yeah.
I mean, he's at the end of every one of his specials, he's like, and the climate's fucked.
Yeah, and this is.
And here's a very hungry polar bear. I don't know what that means.
The polar bear, the poor polar bear. It's like every.
Polar bear is. I don't know if that will ever be a topic on the show, because it does live off of the sea.
Yeah. That polar bear was so skinny it could have walked in Milan Fashion Week.
Skinny and pale.
Oh, yeah, very pale.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Just
I feel like those ones that they make of all the continents?
Yeah.
Like the Life series or the Planet Earth series.
Yeah.
And they're like, they get the polar bear into every continent that they can.
I know. Somehow it's like I don't know.
I mean, it's in Asia.
Like Madagascar.
It's in Antarctica.
I know
It's in
that's
North
not a
America.
continent.
It's in Europe. I mean, it can't like I think Africa and Australia are the ones who are like we can't shove a polar bear in here. We can't.
Yeah, there's no Australian
Some
polar
very
bear.
lost polar bear. And he's very lost. And very hungry.
Just in the red outback, like.
But I mean, it's
it's.
they're old. Yeah. Okay, I'm
He's
not
on
gonna go
the
off on
passage
polar
home.
We took a.
He will be very hungry.
Speaking of animals that are not in any way negatively affected by humans or endangered, the Epaulet shark.
Okay.
They're fine. They are not eaten by much. They are not eaten by us. They're not dangerous to us. They spend a lot of time in tidal pools. People either don't care about them or they sometimes pick them up and stick them in their tanks. They do relatively well in captivity.
There are no cats who are just
Cats don't care.
decimating their populations
Yeah.
like they do
Probably
everything
eat
else.
much better in captivity than.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think they eat pretty well. They successfully maintain themselves and they successfully. Well, that's maybe an unfair word because a lot of animals are very like the balance between them and humans in terms of exchange is super uneven. But no, they it's not a success thing to do their evolution. They just happen to be fine. Their food source isn't affected. They're not affected by external and sort of hierarchical above them
Mm-hmm.
entities.
Got a good niche.
They got a good niche, and it is in tidal pools. Okay, so here's how these sharks deal. Okay, let me back up even a little bit more. They are part of. I'm saying this purely for my own. Like I just think it's cool. They're part of a group of sharks called carpet sharks. They're a species of carpet shark, and I only think this is cool because the whale shark is also a carpet shark.
Wow.
And can you see it? I mean,
How is
Yeah,
that
I-
a carpet shark? The whale shark.
I think they're like flat, like not super
Okay.
dangerous sharks.
Because this, like,
I'm gonna
It
say
lives
right now
on
that's one of those facts
the
that
Terra bottom sand,
might
which
not be.
I could see the carpet, like, coming from that. But, like, how does a whale shark?
Well, like the ocean
just like
sunfish, if that used to be a pufferfish on a reef and now it's suddenly giant in the open ocean, like couldn't the
So
epaulet
it's
shark?
like a lineage
Yeah.
of, like, bottom-dwelling, sand-crawling sharks.
That suddenly decides to like go out and be.
Right. That's true. I mean, I actually don't know so much about its evolution. But I mean, what I'm thinking of is whether it be a foot or as big as the whale shark is. I'm not going to hazard a guess because I'm bad at measurements, but we're looking at a relatively lateral, kind of like vacuum-shaped mouth,
Yeah.
spotted shark
Yeah.
that is not very aggressive or hunty in terms of anything to do with a lot of the larger fish or with humans or something
Right,
like that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay. Right. Okay. So I said something inaccurate before. I was holding up this picture of my shark, and I said its first pair of pectoral fins. Actually, no. Wait. Hold on. I'm getting confused here. It's got a lot of fins.
Yeah. I see at least.
So we
I
see
see 2 dorsal fins.
there are dorsal fins, and then there are these little fins here too. Okay. So if you look up a picture of the Epaulet shark, Epaulettete. It's a French word. We've got 2 fins that definitely look like, okay, that's how it can walk. And I'll get to that. And then there are 2 little dorsal fins that are much further back on its tail. And I forget all of the terminology that came with this, but the way this shark is sort of broken up into like head, body, tail, its tail area takes up like a full third of its body. So a lot of it is a tail. And the dorsal fins are very far back, and they're kind of part of the tail area. That's neither here nor there. That's just a bit of anatomy. Okay, they are nocturnal. They hunt or forage because it's arguable what you're doing if you're just eating snails and stuff like that. Like, I don't know.
Are you hunting
know what I mean?
or are you foraging?
Yeah. I mean, it's not scavenging exactly.
You
But, like,
can sneak
it
up on a
might be
snail.
considered hunting. It
But
might
you
be
don't
considered berry
have to
picking.
sneak up
Exactly.
on a
If you're
snail.
very, very slow, it could get away. Potentially.
You're basically
You
just
really get
you're
distracted.
collecting.
That snail could just get away.
Yep.
They hunt or forage in tidal pools. And okay, I'm gonna come back around to tides. I had a little bit of trouble figuring out how I wanted to organize the information about this one. Let me just scan down my list here about generic epaulette facts. Here's a generic shark fact I came across. Maybe not only sharks, but they are oviparous, which means they lay eggs with little or no internal development of the embryo. So we were talking about before about how the sunfish just kind of squirts some eggs out and they get fertilized.
Yeah.
Sharks have intercourse, but their eggs don't spend a lot of time inside the body.
I see.
So like that no internal development of the embryo means that they are internally fertilized and then they're laid. Now that I'm saying this out loud, I'm realizing I don't know whether they're laid and they have a long development period afterward, or whether they're laid and they just become sharks pretty quickly.
I thought sharks were born live.
Not all of them, though.
Not all.
Not all of them.
Right.
Are they the
Some
kind
are.
of the shark that have that weird, green, egg case thing?
Yeah, it's
Like a
really
mermaid's
weird.
purse?
Yes.
Oh, well,
That's
no.
really strange
Well,
looking.
these are not epaulet shark things. Or if they do that, other sharks also do it.
Okay.
Because epaulet sharks live nowhere near the Atlantic coast, and I see those all the time on the beach.
Okay, yeah.
So, maybe they're in a case. Something like that.
Boy, there needs to be a whole episode that's just about sharks. in
There's
general.
generic what makes a shark.
Yeah.
So we've got cartilage,
so
we've got
good.
tentacles, but then there's a lot of other
But just
stuff.
the
too.
evolution of it and just what makes a shark and not a fish.
Yeah.
And where the lines are.
Noted.
Okay. Their teeth, for a second. We'll talk about this. They have, at their biggest, 26 to 35 rows of teeth. And at their smallest, 21 to 32. When I wrote that down, I was like, oh, this differential is important. But actually, it's not. It's just a fucking lot of rows of teeth.
Rows of teeth?
Yeah, blah, 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 going
20-something rows of teeth?
35 at
Where do they all go?
They flatten. Okay, this is the only shark that chews.
Oh.
Oh.
And it up to 10 to 15 minutes it can chew on something, and it can depress those rows of teeth so they flatten out and it makes a hard flat crushing surface, and this is
Yeah.
how they eat through
Snails.
the
and
shells
stuff.
of
Yeah.
their crustacean.
Wait, so they
or
can be
mollusk.
sharp, but they can also lay flat and make a flat surface? Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Such a
and
superpower.
they must be fucking tiny because
Yeah.
that many rows. But that was really cool. That's the second coolest fact to me. No, okay, so there's 1, 2, 3. That's the third coolest fact to me. The first two I already know is that they walk. Okay, so let's talk about the walking. Why do they do this? So actually, they don't super know why. I mean, obviously, it's an advantage if you're sort of pushing yourself around little tidal pools and you're going in and out of water. And it does go in and out of water. So it may be several inches or a foot submerged, and it can totally come up on land and also kind of propel
Is this
itself into the
any,
next tidal
any
pool.
sort of evolutionary vestigial process of fish coming up onto land?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
is this just a totally, just like I said, they were never thinking to come up on land. They just wanted to get from one tidal pool to the other.
Right.
I know evolution doesn't have an idea in mind, but
But it can
it's
also
kind of
go
crazy
back
to
and
think
forth.
about. Yeah,
Right.
of course.
It goes
So-
both ways.
yeah.
There's no
Like whales
it's crazy
went back.
to think
Yeah,
about.
exactly.
was
exactly.
a sentence we said
But
about
it's
all
crazy.
whales are from.
Yeah,
From land
to
going
think
back
about
and
Yeah.
forth.
evolution as I'm going to go here so I can get to there, and that's not how it works. They just go I'm going to go here, and then when I'm here I'm going to go figure out how to go somewhere else.
Right.
I mean, this is a really butchered simplification of it, but it's kind of crazy to think about.
Okay. So, all right, I'm gonna jump back to kind of what I was saying anatomically about the ability to do this, which is both an ability and actually a preference as far as we can assign a sort of anthropomorphic word to it. They prefer to always be moving this way, so don't really technically swim. They just sort of do the worm all the time. The supports or the connective area and tissue of the fin is separated and articulated in a way that allows this rotation that's different from normal sorts of fins.
Wow.
So it has like a kind of almost shoulder. that
Yes,
it can, like,
exactly.
twist.
And it can rotate, and that's what allows them to push themselves along this kind of way. So that's unique in the fin world. And then the animal that they compare this shark the most to is a salamander. And okay, so what your question about evolution, like, was this intentional with the like goal to get on land or whatever? The way the motor skills, or like this sort of like movement in the leg or the fin of these two animals suggests convergent evolution. And what that means is independent evolution of similar features and species in different periods or epochs. So this does not mean that the Epaulet shark came out of the salamander, or the salamander came out of the Epaulet shark. It means that at a very different time, both of these animals independently developed that movement, and there is no evidence that like this shark went back in or is trying to get out.
Right.
It just developed this feature, but it is a very similar feature to its closest, like, not actual relative in terms of DNA, I don't think, but like what you would observe.
Thing.
Yeah. It's just like, this is also
it's like
why a salamander ended up on land is because
Yeah.
it developed the same thing that an epaulet shark has in its fins.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah.
Oh, it's like flight with like insects or whatever versus like birds. Like they each came up with
And
like
bats.
in bats.
Yeah.
Like flight has like had convergent evolution in like several different like animal
Right.
Yeah,
kingdoms or
totally.
whatever, or species or whatever. But they each kind of figure out their own way.
So there's absolutely, if you look at it, it looks like those little spotted orange salamanders with black spots. Wait, I don't know if you ever found those as a kid.
Is that a newt?
Okay,
I
I knew them
remember
as
finding
salamanders.
those as a kid.
They are big and like in the Poconos.
Oh,
and like
we don't have
streams.
those in Texas.
Okay, I was gonna.
I
I
remember
was gonna be
finding
like,
them
you
in
guys
West
remember,
Virginia.
but Nate's
Nope.
from Texas.
Yeah, not even close. Maybe
But I remember
somewhere
a
in Texas, but not
salamander
where I
and
grew
a
up.
newt being different things. And there was a salamander that was like dark, but a newt was like orange with black
But
spots.
wait. But a salamander spends more time in water than a newt does, or vice versa. I can't remember.
I think a newt spends more time in water.
Yeah, one of them spends more time because there's like huge, giant, like, what are they called?
The hellbender.
Hellbender, yeah.
Yeah.
They're giant, like, salamanders, and they live almost entirely underwater.
Right.
But they can get up and walk on land if they have to.
Salamanders are like, you know, they're not like a bearded dragon common, but they're a feature in like pet reptile,
yeah.
like an amphibian tanks. They're
Well, I've seen
definitely
those black and orange ones before.
right,
yeah.
and you find those under like damp leaf piles in the forest mostly,
Oh.
and they are
I don't think we have forests.
they're like a
where-
tiny. Nate's from Dallas.
Yeah, it's just a lot of concrete.
I don't think we have forests. Maybe at the Dallas World Aquarium.
Maybe, yeah. For miles, as far as the eye can see, it's just gray.
Stacked highways.
Yep.
It's like the Australian current.
We do have a
I'm referencing Finding Nemo again.
We do have a highway that's 6 levels stacked on top of each other.
Yeah.
But that's not really a natural feature.
It's not a natural
It's
phenomenon.
not a salamander
No, it's
habitat.
5. It's 5. I'm just kidding. It's not 6. It's 5 because we call it the high 5.
Don't exaggerate.
I know. I gotta stop.
Don't brag.
I gotta stop.
Texas. No, I was going for one more than it actually is.
That is it's so accurate.
And the whole thing is air conditioned, even though it's
Yeah, the
outside.
whole you can roll your windows down when you're on the 5 stacked highway. You don't need that air
And there's
conditioning
just
in your car
ribs
then.
everywhere.
Okay, wait. So, what part of the shark was I talking about?
Spots.
Convergent evolution with a salamander.
Spots. Yeah, that was a while ago. Okay, so if you're thinking about a little salamander, okay, I've made my point. They're similar. Okay, here is the other fact about them that is really cool. So we talked about walking, and we talked about their teeth, which flatten out and become like a crushing mechanism. The number 2 cool fact is their relationship to oxygen conservation. I feel like this is becoming another theme of mine, which is like animals that deal with conserving their ability to live without oxygen for incredible feats worth of time. So They spend most of their time in tidal pools. And what happens, okay, I'm going to talk about the way tides work for a second. There are 3 types of tides in the world. You guys know what tides are, but this is what happens when either we're at high tide or low tide along coastlines. There are diurnal tides, which is, they're kind of more rare in the world. And this is when there is only one high tide and one low tide per day. There are semi-diurnal tides, which is where there are 2 high tides and 2 low tides per day.
Yeah.
So one is every 24 hours. That's diurnal. Semi-diurnal is every 12 hours.
Yeah, we have the 2.
We have 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole Atlantic
episode
coast.
is going to be how the fuck tides work.
How the
I
fuck
do not
tides
understand
work. We're
tides
just gonna
at all.
We're going to call the
I know
name
it's
of that
something to
episode
do
How the
with
Fuck
the
Tides
moon
Work.
and the sun, and that's it.
That might be one of those
Yeah.
episodes that we get someone with some information
Yeah, because
on.
all I know is that the park
We need
smells like
Tom.
wet ocean trash twice a day.
Right.
So-
Yeah, exactly. And that's low tide always.
Yep.
Small force.
Yeah.
And then there's a third type of tide called a mixed tide. A mixed, well, I'll say the whole name, mixed semi-diurnal. So there aren't mixed diurnal tides or mixed semi-diurnal tides. And I believe this is where they're not so equitable. So like it's a mixed tide in that it may not be equal every 12 hours. It's variable. Okay, so these sharks live all around Indonesia, Southeast Asia, and around most of the coast of Australia, not the very southern coast where it starts to get quite cold. And they squelch themselves up on land, and they have the ability to live, hang out in, kind of power down in, or be salvage hunting in these tidal pools for extremely long periods of time. When I looked at a map of how the different tides work around those areas, it's pretty it's a pretty big mix. And I don't mean mixed diurnal, like that one category.
Yeah.
I mean like there are all 3 types
Yeah.
of tides. And so I think this is me extrapolating, but this shark, because it inhabits all these areas, I think it has the ability to live up to the ability to do what it does in terms of super low oxygenation levels, because some of those areas are diurnal, which means that when it strands itself in a tidal pool, it's there for quite a while before it's able to get back into
Oh, I see.
water.
Okay.
When you say oxygen, whatever you said, oxygen deprivation,
Yeah.
is this like when it's on land and it can't breathe?
No.
Or is this when it's in tidal pools and
Right.
there's no like current?
So I'm going to talk about that. So like when a tidal pool is isolated into a pool for a very long time, all of the combined respiration of the organisms in that pool use up all the oxygen available in that water.
So crazy.
So you can have water
Oxygen is
that's
a
totally
really
deoxygenated.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Because oxygen, like I understand oxygen, like trees and everything make oxygen.
Yeah.
But oxygen immediately, once it's created, it has like a half-life of deterioration. That's
Right.
why like scientists, so they look for life in other planets. If they find oxygen, it means there's life.
Yeah.
Because only life can make oxygen.
Can make
because
it.
Yeah.
like oxygen just like dissolves into like the more elementary
Yeah,
elements.
it gets
Like
combined
afterwards.
into other elements or oxidized,
Yeah.
And like, not only is the oxygen in a tide pool limited because creatures are absorbing it, but also animals can't take oxygen out of H2O. Like, you're only accessible, you can only access dissolved oxygen from the atmosphere into the water.
Right.
Yeah.
And so heating up the water, because the tide pool is shallow and under the sun, means it can hold less oxygen anyway. So it's already going to be less oxygenated than like cold, deep water.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So this is okay. What is this? Okay, I have this term. I'm just gonna make sure I'm going to say this right. Isolated tidal pools. Okay, so the word that goes along with this, hypoxia. HYPOXIA.
Okay.
And hypoxia, this is the ability this shark has to live in areas that are completely devoid of oxygen. So that HY being like there isn't any. So they can successfully, they're like hypoxic. I don't know.
So
how to
does
make
this mean they like essentially in a shark sort of way hold their breath for like a long time? Or they store up oxygen or?
Yeah, so shark brains in general consume about 1/3 of the organic, whatever the organic compound is that provides energy to brains, as do bony fish. I don't know why that is.
Wait, 1/3. So they consume a lot less.
They consume a lot less. So whatever, and I'm not clear on this, but like I'm not clear. There was a word that was, I clicked on it and it led to another word, and it was just a stream of those like rabbit hole terms that we try to avoid here. That is this organic compound, but whatever that energy is, that's like broken down into this and this and this, and builds up into that thing that if you read it, it's like, here's the cumulative, like what, like you're like, I don't know what that means.
I read about something
you
like
know,
this.
yeah,
when I was
right.
on
Like
keto,
so, like
but-
this has no like actual tangible meaning. That compound, shark brains only use a part of that as ray finned bony fish do.
Mhm.
So this is like what most of your non-stingray, non-shark, you know, it's just like your fish. Like your fish with a skeleton that we eat, blah, blah, blah. The Epaulet Shark further lowers that usage by reducing the metabolism in areas of its brain. And specifically what that means is it can keep its sensory nuclei functioning and active, but its motor nuclei totally deactivated. That's the sentence I got. I tried researching that with a little more specificity, of course, without the hours of research that real people do. What I can extract from that is that they can strand themselves in a tidal pool, do their foraging, whatever. If they need to just survive for a while before they can get back out, they can just power down, keep their senses active while not moving. So they can shut off the parts of their brain that allow them to move at all.
So they don't have like muscular.
They don't have like
action, but it's
motor
just,
skills
like,
going
they're
on.
still
But if they
aware
need to,
from-
boom, it can go on.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But I don't think it needs to very much because, I mean, I even thought about this. Like, what made a bird fly by and pick them up? I don't know, maybe. There wasn't anything about that. But, like, they don't really have a lot of predators that they're facing in these tidal pools.
Yeah,
so
they're
when,
super camouflaged too.
yeah, and they're just kind of like, oh, I'll just wait till the tide comes. Okay, so that's what's going on here. It strands itself in tidal pools that may go out in 12 hours. It may come back in 12 hours. It may be 24, maybe in a sort of like random amount of time, depending on what coastline it's in. It forages around. It walks on little sandy bars and beaches all over the place, and it powers itself down when it starts to run out of oxygen. It can live, let me get this right, it can survive without oxygen for up to an hour, or it can survive, not or, maybe and, at 5% oxygen for about 3 hours, which is pretty amazing.
It's pretty crazy.
I mean, if you think about like really the role that oxygen plays, it is not like not just breathing, but like it's animals everything. They need to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, we did the Cuvier's beaked whale, and this is a diving animal that retains oxygen, and it doesn't lose it, and it doesn't explode because of all these things that its body does to change shape, and it compresses its organs and everything. But this is a tiny little animal that it doesn't take a bunch in. It just has a way of shutting down all the parts of its body that would use oxygen, because that's what makes our bodies function. It just shuts those parts down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that sums it up. I have a few other little random facts. These are more shark facts. I should save them for the Shark Week. They hunt using a combination of olfactory and electroreceptive senses in their faces.
Cool.
So there are some words that will titillate everybody, but yeah, essentially that's the Epaulet Shark. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Right? It's
Also,
like
you guys
little...
can't see this, but she has a really amazing drawing of this Epaulet Shark in her notebook.
Oh yeah.
True naturalist.
I try to be. Here's my flatworm.
Flatworm.
That's what that is? Yeah. I've been staring at that the whole time. Being like, is that a giant clam?
Yeah.
Like, what is that?
Okay, wait. I'll tell you more about that, but that's an episode that will predate this one that we haven't released yet. But so
We'll edit it
I'm
out.
backward in my But okay, so
Is that
here
good?
we are. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah. Thank you for being our guest.
For joining.
And until next time.
Yes, we need a dose of inspiration. This Leviathan meditation set to